I work as a manager for 7 years now. I learned professionally how to be a manager. This is what I do for a living. I have changed my opinion on many things since I've started, and I'm not embarrassed to admit it, because leadership is a journey, and if you're not open-minded, you will not be a good manager. But there is one aspect of being a manager about which I personally changed my mind the most. And today I want to talk about it. My channel is super tiny, but I know that a part of my audience are also managers. So maybe you will hear my story and share what you guys, from your experience, think about it. It is year 2016 and I first started managing others. And what do you do when you first start your managerial job? You observe all of the managers and leaders around you and you use them as role models. You take this as the rules of the game. As a fresh manager, I was observing my management and tried to pick up their practices and attitudes. Everything they used to do was heavily connected to a concept of power. And if I right now retrospectively try to describe it and put into words, this is how would I explain it. A good manager always should have an image of a powerful person. You should radiate authority, because this is what makes other people do what you say. A proper manager, I will be doing this a lot in this video, supposed to be distant from non-managers, for no one ever confuse a leader with ordinary people. And because of this vibe of power, manager always portrayed as something cool, so you are supposed to want to be there. This ideal manager is supposed to be reasonable, but at the same time very strict. And also, if this manager is humble when talking to people, it is like, oh my god, glorified, because it kind of implies that this manager has an authority to yell at you, and if they're not doing that, this is kind of portrayed as something fantastic. These managers are making decisions all by themselves and take responsibility also themselves. So there is a kind of surrounding vibe of managerial job being very hard. That's why a good manager is always serious, always focused, with the heaviest weight on their shoulders every single day. So this was a vibe of a manager that I observed were socially approved. And because of that, in the beginning of my leadership journey, I adopted several practices. First, I should always appear more powerful than I actually am, because a level of power is the most important thing when it comes to creating impression on other people. So if I want to be taken seriously, I should appear more powerful. I should be very serious, because we're managers, we're doing serious job. There is no time for anything joyful at all. I think the only thing that is kind of acceptable is if you are sarcastic towards people and kind of look down on people who don't understand how actually tough and serious managerial job is. So this is the only thing that is okay. I should always be busy, because work is everything. Your job should appear really hard to justify why we're not enjoying it, but we're doing it for the people, we're doing it for the company. So the vibe of, I would retire a long time ago, but how would they survive without me? I've learned that I'm supposed to be distant from people, because it's supposed to be a club being a manager, because this is what is the source of elitism in this role. Finally, I've learned that I'm supposed to keep close to me people who are loyal, but not necessarily the one who are the most qualified, because loyal people will support everything I will do as a manager. Now, before I move on to debunking all that, there is actually a way how this attitude and approach served me to a certain extent, so I want to give a justice to that. And I think the skill, or like the ability to appear very serious to others, did help me as a woman in tech and woman in management to be taken seriously. And also maybe because of that, it kind of helped me not to get intimidated that easily, because I kind of always knew and felt that if management feels intimidated towards you, it's like just a game of how powerful you appear, because I know this game. Now I want to talk about what made me change my mind and then move to the advice part. So there were a few moments in my career when I started to think that this approach to being a manager may not be the best. And the first one is, I started to notice companies that from the outside the picture picture looked very good and very strong, but there were so many problems underneath, and in some cases it got rotten through and through and fall apart. And the reason for that was, maybe not the only reason, but one of the big reasons was because this power distance between management and employees kind of grew. Management failed to listen to their people, and even if they tried to send them signals about that something is wrong, they would ignore it, or there would be a culture of, oh, you don't say to your manager the truth because it will not favor you as an employee. Although from the outside everything looked good because employees are saying everything is fine and management is saying everything is fine. I think in the past I would not really believe what people on the ground would tell me and would not consider it as useful for one simple reason. Because I'm a manager and I represent authority, the only interest that people on the ground can have is to complain over the top more than they actually experience, to use it to ask for money. So people on the ground will always be interested in exaggerating their struggles. That's why you should not really believe things that they say. Another thing that's made me change my mind is I think I just worked longer to see that the idea, I am the smartest person, I know what I'm doing, so this is my decision and this is how I go, is not always working. Of course, as a manager, you need to trust yourself, and yes, you are indeed smart, but people who work for you are also smart. And yeah, in the end, the decision is yours as a leader, but I was wrong so many times, although I was so convinced that I'm right. And all of that was happening because I kind of tried to embrace this attitude that I explained in the beginning, and it led to me not actually trusting people that work for me. I also started to see with years and with practice that people don't actually think that you're weak if you're saying that you don't know something or ask about opinions of other people. So it is okay to allow yourself to be more human. And speaking of being more human, I don't think I honestly really ever wanted to take myself too seriously. So one of the things that happened is I studied and worked abroad. So I got exposed to different role models, and I actually saw with my own eyes that managers can be not that serious. So I think for myself, personally, I really needed to observe that to allow myself not to be that serious even if I occupy a serious role. I honestly tried my best to abandon the concept of managerial elitism and think more about how I as a leader can help my team succeed, not the other way around. So in a nutshell, when it comes to this particular topic, my mindset right now is very different from before. Now I want to open a discussion and ask for your advice and opinion as managers. As you could have guessed from the storyline, I kind of consider this more power distance approach to management as not that good, and the alternative for it is better. But at the same time, I know that all of us has biases and limitations of our understanding, so I'm kind of trying my best not to make judgment that one thing is necessarily bad and one thing is necessarily good. Also, for example, on MBA, I've learned that there are multiple leadership practices and leadership strategies that may work in different cases. Or for example, if you're an entrepreneur, there are two approaches to entrepreneurship. Either you prioritize wealth, money, or you prioritize control. And these two objectives imply very different strategies from you as an entrepreneur. So I'm kind of thinking about this first. Maybe this more power-distant approach to management is actually cultural, and maybe it's the right one to use in specific cultures. Maybe this management style is actually needed, but for the cases that I don't think about. Maybe there are companies or situations or circumstances where being more distant, having a lower level of trust between management and teams actually work well, where playing these power games is the only feasible way for you to survive and succeed as a manager. I will be honest with you, I kind of developed a certain dislike towards this approach to management because, at least as of now, for me, it feels a little bit toxic, a little bit old school. But at the same time, I think maybe it's me working in companies and in cultures where it's not needed that much. I wonder what you think about all that. So let's talk. I will be waiting for you in the comment section.